Hi, today on Dash Street Music School, I'll be talking about right hand picking technique for classical guitar. The primary hand position you want to stay in is essentially thinking of your hand as though it's a claw, and you're going from a state of being a claw to closing your hand into a fist. And if you want to get into the claw position easier, start with your hand being in the fist and just open it slightly to the point where it looks somewhat like this. Now, if we take this to the guitar, another thing you want to keep in mind is that your thumb is out front of your fingers, and part of the reason for that is that when you do pick with your thumb, it's not going to be blocked by your index finger, or any of your fingers for that matter. And in addition to that, you're essentially just closing your hand into a fist. Now, you won't always be closing it into a complete fist, because that would get pretty taxing after a while. But for the means of just getting used to doing this, because it isn't the most natural feeling in the world, I suggest that you do. And what I was doing just then is going to be our first exercise for this. It really is just planting your fingers on the strings. Your thumb will be on the low E string, and then your three fingers, index, middle, and ring, will be on the G, B, and E strings, the three highest sounding strings. And simply close your hand to a fist, and plant, and close, and plant. Once you get comfortable doing this, then we can start talking about doing it individually. And that looks pretty similar. Your hands are going to be planted. We're going to pick first with your thumb, then your index, then middle, then ring, and then we plant again. And that shouldn't be too hard to transition into the next part of the exercise, which is just simply adding in two more fingers, middle and index again, descending this time. So all together, sounding like this. Thumb, index, middle, ring, middle, index, and then we plant our whole hand again. And planting is such an important part of right hand technique. As you can see, when we're playing up the strings, and when I say up, I do mean pitch-wise, despite the fact that they're getting closer to the ground, you will leave your hands planted, your fingers planted as you pick. So thumb will pick, and we're going to leave all the other fingers planted. Index will pick, other fingers will stay planted, and so on and so forth. However, when you pick down pitch-wise, we will plant the fingers individually. So that's the two different methods of planting. And then we'll get to the beginning of the picking pattern again and simply just loop that. And this is how I warm up pretty much every day still. And finally, we come to the last part of the exercise, and this is taking the same picking pattern that we just did, but now having the thumb change which string it will be hitting. Starting in the low E, then going to the A, then going to the D, then going back to the A, and then finally looping that set of patterns with those bass strings over and over again until we finally have a good sense of how we should be closing our hand or closing our fingers individually. So they just hear all that in context. It'll sound something like this.